Welcome back. So in this video, we're going to make our boat more interesting. So we're starting with the basic boat that we had last time, and I'm going to show you how to improve this. So the first thing I want to do is move it up into the air so I can get a better look at it. So let me go ahead and select the entire boat here in the Explorer window. Now I just want to move it up out of the water, and then I could move my camera to get a better look at this. So one thing to notice is we're going to need to get different views of our boat. And so one easy way to do that is to use this view selector. So let me show you. So if I press left, or actually let me press some of these other buttons. So if I press front, my boat's out of focus. So let me press F to find. And what this does is this centers the boat in my camera view. And now that it's centered, I can move around it using these little triangles on the sides. And this makes it very easy to look at all of the different views when building my boat. Okay, so I use that a lot. And you can also just move the camera manually using the right mouse button. Okay, but this is also useful to use the view selector. Okay, so let's start adding some parts. So the way we do this is we're going to go ahead and expand this. And let's see. First thing we want to do is let's choose a different material for our base. So let me click on boat floor and let me go to material, and I'm going to go ahead and make this metal. Okay, and let me pick a different color, maybe some kind of gold. Let me see now. Let's see. Blue. This is going to be shiny, so that looks good. I'll just pick a nice blue metal or cyan metal. Okay, now one thing I want to do though is I want to make sure while we're doing this, oh whoops, let me undo that. One thing I want to do when we're doing this is when we choose different materials for our boat parts, the physics is actually going to be affected. So let's make sure that metal material doesn't do anything. Oh, and it does, look. Okay, so what happened is that because we changed the material to metal, the boat sank. Okay, before we had it made out of wood, and that has a certain density, but the metal has a much higher density, and so it's gone. So let's go ahead and change that. And this is something new actually. You can go here, click on your boat floor, and what you want to do is go down to, here it is, custom physical properties, and we want to turn that on. And when we turn that on, we get more properties that we can change. And one, here it is. Okay, so the density is 7.85, and let me show you what the density is for wood. So I'm going to change this back to wood planks. Where is it? Here it is, wood planks. Okay, now let me show you what the density is for wood planks. Oh, and it actually, I wonder if I have to refresh or something. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I just had to click this off and then on again. And you can see the density for wood planks is 0.35. And I think anything under 1 will float. But if we change that material to metal, and we go back here to this custom physical properties and we click on and off, now you can see the density is 7.85, but that's easy to change, right? We can just change that to what we had for wood, the 0.35. And now our boat should float again. So let's test that. And it does. Okay, and you know what? Let's just go ahead and test it, make sure everything is still working. It looks nice, and I love the way the metal looks. The metal material looks fantastic. You will notice, let me see, I think it steers about the same, but yeah, I just love the way that metal glows in the sun. Okay. So now we've changed the material for this. Now we want to add parts to this. And what I did before is I kind of made a raft looking boat. And so again, I'm going to raise it back up into the air just so I can get a good view of this. And okay. And so now what I want to do is I want to add some parts to this. So I'm going to add some cylinders first. Let me go ahead and add a cylinder. And let's see if it put it inside. No, it did not. Okay, so this did not get placed inside of my boat object, so I can just drag it over there. So if you left click and then just drag it inside the boat, now you have it as part of the boat group. Okay, and let's see, this first one, I'm just gonna move over here and I'm gonna get a top view so I can get nice and so I can make sure this is centered. Oh, and one thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into the model menu and make sure you have these settings right here. So I have rotate on and move on, and I have it set to 0.5 studs for move and 45 degrees for rotate. And this helps you to keep everything aligned. Without it, well, with it, you can see that this moves in steps. And that helps to keep everything aligned. Without it, this is going to move wherever you want. And it's going to be much harder to keep everything centered. So let me turn that back on and let's go ahead and align this. Let me put it right in the middle. And that doesn't look, oh, actually, no, it does. Okay, one thing that's kind of difficult to do is when you look at different views, moving the camera even slightly to the left or right here will make it look like your part isn't centered. But if you go a little bit on the camera view, you can tell that it is. And another way you can tell if it's centered is you can actually check the position for these things. So let's look at my boat floor. And if we go here to position, you'll see that it's 1130. Okay, and so the X position is 11, and that is this little red axis here, or the red axis here with the move arrows. And so let's check what the X position is for the part. And you'll see it's also 11. So you know that they're centered because they have the same X position. Let me go ahead and rename this. I'm going to call this a cylinder, just to avoid having everything with the part name. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to move this. This looks about the right size, actually. Let me go ahead and move it to the edge though. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is look at this from the side and make sure that my boat is focused. Nice. Okay, so now I can see that this cylinder is way too high. And it's actually too small as well. I want it to be about the same size or bigger than my boat floor. So I'm going to change the size on the cylinder. I'm going to make it, let's try a 422. See how big that is. Yeah, that's a good size. So a 422 looks good. But you'll notice because I have collisions on, I can't actually move it through my part. So you're going to be wanting to turn that on and off depending on what you're doing. All right, so I'm going to turn it off right now so that I can move this so that it's right in the middle. And let's move my camera around. Yeah, that looks exactly in the middle right now. Okay, and let me go back to my top view. Let me focus on my boat. Good. Okay, so the other thing is we can actually change colors on this stuff, right? So let's say I wanted my floor to be blue, but I want the parts making my raft to be a different color. So easy to change. I'll make this some kind of greenish color maybe, or a purplish. Yeah, that looks good. I like the purple. Okay, and I'm gonna make some more copies of this and I'm gonna place them along the sides of my raft. So let me go ahead and let me make some copies. So I'm gonna just press Control D. You can also go back to the home menu and use duplicate. Okay, and because I have collisions off, it placed it in the exact same spot. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it, and I'll just use the rotate tool to rotate it so that it's this way. And then I want to move it over to the side. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's see, maybe a little more. Like, again, it's kind of hard to tell. Let me move my camera to just check. Let's see. That looks centered. Yeah, actually, it's perfectly centered. Okay, let me go back. Okay, now I do want to change the size on this because I want it to run the entire length of my little raft here. So let's make that, let's see, 422. So the long axis is the 4. Let's try an 8. No, not big enough. Let's try a 9. That looks almost there. Let's try a 10. Now that looks about right, except I don't have it centered actually. Let me put it here. Okay, now let's try a 12. Okay, that actually, you know what? That's fine. That will work actually. So let's go ahead and make a copy of this. Let's duplicate this one and then move it to the other side. So let me duplicate and let me move this one to the other side. And I have collisions off, so I can go ahead and place it exactly where I want. And I think that's right. Let's check. That looks good. Okay, now this one here, the bottom cylinder, I'm going to move down a little bit. And you'll see why in a second. That is good. Except I'm probably, okay, what's going to happen is I want to round these corners. So I'm going to have to either, oh, I'm going to have to make this one bigger. So let me make this one bigger now. And you'll see why in a second when we get to adding spheres for the corners. So let's try a 6. That looks good. And here's how I know that that's good. You can see that these are lined up on the corners really well. And yeah, we might have to change the sizes on these when we add the spheres, but for now that looks pretty good. Okay, we're starting to see a raft. And let me show you what this looks like from a different angle. Yeah, starting to look like a raft. Whoops. Camera control's not as good as usual. Okay, that looks good. So let me go switch back to a top view. Move my camera so that this raft is centered. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to add some spheres to round off these corners. Okay, and what you could do, you could move these to where they weren't rounded. They were just they had kind of sharp corners. But I think it looks better when you have these spheres in there. So let me go ahead and add a sphere, and I'll show you how I do this. And this is really off, so let me move this. Whoa. All right, and I think the size is off on this, but let me change the view so I can see this better. Oh, and let me put this inside with the boat as well. And let me rename this to sphere. Okay, and then let me focus on this. There we go. And it is too big. So let's change the size. So I think I had the cylinders as a 2. So let's try a 2 for these as well. And I think that is good. The only way to check though is to switch views and then to move it to the side. Let's see. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to a top view. You know what? Maybe too small, but we'll find out here in a second. And I'll show you what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to make the edges round, and I fake that by using spheres. I place spheres at the corners. Oh, okay. One thing that it did though, you'll notice, let me show you what the Y value is for the position on these. Okay, so it's almost exactly 3. You can see the position is a 2.99. So I want that to be also the Y value for my sphere. So I'm going to change that. Right now it's a little off. Okay, that's better. Now that's a line there. And let's see if I can get this right in the corner. That is actually almost perfect. Okay, the only thing is that this long cylinder here, let me see if I can select it. Not that one, this one. This long cylinder, it's not quite long enough. We need to make it a little longer so that it matches up with this sphere. So that's actually really easy to do. We just go to that cylinder and we change the size. We increase it along that direction. So instead of a 12, let's try a 13. And that does it. And now you can see that this corner, let me move the camera so you can see that better. I used a sphere and these cylinders to get these nice rounded edges on there. And I'll do that for the other side as well. So let me make a copy of this sphere. Then let me get my camera view. Okay, so let me duplicate this and move it. And it's good. And now we have to change the size of the other cylinder. I think I made that one a 13. Yeah. Okay, and let me show you what this looks like from the top. These corners look great. I like the way they look. Okay, and the back actually looks good too. I am going to add some more spheres here to round that off. And let me go ahead and do that. And then we're almost finished, actually. We just need to connect these up. So let me get that top view. Okay, that's better. Okay, so let me make some copies of these so I can round the edges on the back. So I'm going to do duplicate, or press duplicate, and I'm going to move this all the way to the back here. And there it is. Okay, let me make a copy of that one. So I'm just going to press Control D. That's another way to make a copy. And move it over to the other one. And you can see because I have this snap to grid on, everything is aligned really well because everything moves by 0.5. Okay. And here we go. We have a nice raft. And this looks good. The only thing I might do, you know what? This is fine. But here, let me show you what we haven't done. And let me show you by testing it. You'll see we have all these pieces together. But if we push play, they're gone. They all fell off because they're not welded to our boat. So let's start welding some of these. Okay, so let me get a top view. That makes it a little easier. Move my camera. And actually, that's good. Okay, and so we go over to the model menu. And the connection, the constraint that we want is here. We want to create a weld. And you'll notice I have nothing selected. Nothing is blue over here in the workspace. That's usually the way I use these welds. You can also click on water or the sky, and that will deselect. Make sure nothing is selected. Then I go ahead and create a weld. And I click on my floor. And then I click on my piece. Okay, and I want to do this a number of times until everything is connected. So I will do create. And now that it's been selected once, it's right here at the top. I can just press on that. Click on the boat floor and then click on the side. Good. And we'll just do this for all of the pieces. So let me zoom out a little bit actually. Okay, there we go. So let's keep going. So create a weld. Click on the boat floor. Click on this piece. Create a weld. Click on the boat floor. Now I'm going to click on all of these cylinders. Just going to connect all of these pieces together. And I think I'm just about done. And you can see that it gives you a nice little highlight whenever you're over the piece that you want. So here I'm over the cylinder, and then here I'm over the cylinder, and here I'm over the sphere. Oh, and you know what? I did this wrong. If you make a mistake, you can always just you can press the undo button and that will get rid of that. So let me do this again. Create, click on the floor, and then click on yeah, and you can see it's starting to make this little red line, which tells you that it's going to make the connection to these two pieces. There we go. Okay, so everything should be connected, and we should test this, but let me go ahead, since we're finished, I'm going to put this back at sea level. Okay, so I'm just going to select and make sure everything is, let's see. Oh, you know what? Some of these are not. Let me make sure everything's inside the boat. Yeah, everything's inside the boat. Good. So I just select the boat, and I'm going to move this down. Until, oh, and let me turn collisions back on so it stops when it hits the ocean. And there it is. Okay, now we want to test this, obviously, but I can already tell you this thing is going to sink because these are made of metal. These extra parts that we just added. So let's just make sure. We push play, and the boat is at the bottom of our ocean. And actually, it probably fell through and it's gone. Yeah, anything that falls through the floor and goes far enough down is going to get destroyed. Okay, so what do we do? Well, you could change the the density of all of these pieces. But let me show you something else that you can do. So let's see, cylinder. Okay, so this cylinder, we could go here and do the custom properties like we did last time, but there's actually a massless property that we can use. And if you click that, and actually if you can do this for more than one part at a time. So let me go ahead and show you how you do that. So we're gonna click the first part, which is, we have 3 cylinders and we have 4 spheres. So I'm gonna click the first one, and then I'm gonna click the last one using Shift left click. And if I do that, it selects everything in between. Okay, and now for all of these, I can set the property, the massless property. So these things will not weigh anything basically. And now if I push play, this should stay, and it does, it floats. Okay, so now let's test it. And it works. We have a much nicer looking boat. And it steers about the same, maybe a little less. Depending on how heavy your boat is, it's going to affect how fast it moves, how easy it is to steer. It does seem like it's steering not as fast, but you can always change that, right? You can go into the script and make the numbers different. So let's say that I wanted this to steer a little faster. Instead of a -1, I could do, let's say, a -5. And that should steer a lot faster. So let's try that. That's kind of like the strength of the steering. So let's see how much faster this steers now that I changed that to a 5. Let's see. Oh yeah, much faster. It actually might be too fast. Yeah, that might be way too fast. Let's just try a 2. A 2 should be fine. So -2 here. So this number that I multiply by, instead of a 1, make it a 2. And then this number here, this also makes it go forwards and backwards faster. But we'll just try a 2, and I'll stick with a 3000. That was actually pretty good. And you don't want this to go too fast, because that will be hard to control. Okay, let me test it. And with a 2, yeah, a 2 is nice. It's not too fast. Not too slow. And to be honest, the 1 is probably good as well. Okay, so we have improved our boat. And I've shown you how to attach parts and how to take care of certain materials being too heavy and causing our boat to sink. We can also add effects, and we will do that in a video here to come. But that is it for now.